So there's always going to be people in your life that are just not going to like you for who you are. And it doesn't matter the sort of criteria or the arena that you are in for just some God known reason. You just have to accept that some people just don't like you for no reason, right? And I think that that is a really important lesson to think about. And you could sort of think, and this is like super hard for me. I am a person that really strives to have everybody like me. That's just who I am. That's how I was born and raised. Um, I was born in a very stable family where everybody did like me growing up. And then I was desperately, because I was actually a very lonely kid, um, probably from grade six on until sort of my formative years. I was very lonely, so I always really was striving for people to like me. But at all stages of my life, I'm going to be very honest, there's always been people that have just not liked me for no reason, right? Like there might be a reason that they perceive, but it's not necessarily anything that's clear, right? It's nothing that you've done, that there is no sort of, logic in your head that you can sort of think things through, and you just simply have to accept it. Now, I live in the southern states at this moment, and there's a saying that a lot of people say down here, and it is bless your heart. And it's basically when somebody does something or somebody says something to you, you just basically say bless your heart. And it's just like, you know, it's acceptance of the fact that they just won't like what you are doing. And it's acceptance of the fact that there's nothing you can do about it. So then you just have to live your life. And I was thinking about, like, okay, what can you possibly do to go through this and to think, how do you actually change this? And I was thinking in my head of as one do. I don't know where you think otherwise, right? Do I think out of my arm? I was thinking in my head as what does this actually mean? So first of all, you are likely thinking about the situation far more than what they do, and that's the sort of bothersome thing that drives me bananas. It's because I do think about that. I think all the time of I think about these various different people that have been in my life, and I'm thinking, like, why, right? And the thing is that they're not thinking about you in the same sort of way, right? Does not happen like that. You are just kind of a nobody, a peon, a kind of blip in their life, and they're not even reflecting on the fact that they're doing the things that they're doing. But, you know, what I've come to deal with and what I've come to sort of realize over many years thinking about this, um, I was making this fundamental assumption. I made this assumption for a long time. I often still do on surface value, because I think everybody is like me, right? And that is a fundamental flaw that we all have as human beings. I think that there's an actual sort of psychological bias that we have, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's this basic story that we all think that everybody else is like you. But the truth is they're not. They're all very different. And some people, depending on how they're raised, depending on just genetic traits, like just who they are deep down inside, they do not see the world in the same sort of way. They might see it, the two ones that I know that are extremely powerful, one of them is being narcissism, right? That it's a very powerful thing. And what that is, and I went through a really deep investigation of that. And so what that is this idea that you are really fear based. And that's what it comes down to, right? You had some sort of traumatic events. This is a sort of basic philosophy, or you're raised in a certain way that you always doubted yourself. And the way that you doubt yourself is to project onto other people that you are superior. Um, and the superiority will show in various different ways. And if somebody doesn't respond to that, they're extremely aggressive. They call it narcissistic rage, right? And they'll just kind of fly off the handle. And I invite you to go on a deep journey on that. And you'll realize, like, oh my gosh, you know what? A lot of people are like this. And it sort of reflects on maybe our downfall with parenting, or we're just not raising people with unconditional love. And that's what it comes down to, is being raised in an environment where you have conditional love. The only way that you are doing well is if you're successful. It's a sort of basic story, and if you're not, then you can't deal with it, because that's not how you were rewarded when you were growing up. Um, so there's that one, and then there's also sociopaths and psychopaths, which are really very much part of this world as well, right? Like people, 10%. I don't know. There's some number somewhere around the 10% number where people are walking around that they're either a psychopath or a sociopath. Um, and either one of them, there's probably a percentage, and even if it's 5%, that's still pretty high. And so, what are those? They're sociopath is you don't necessarily have any social conscience, right? Like you're okay with just kind of, um, um, I can't remember the distinction with a psychopath, um, but basically with a sociopath, you have no social conscience. You do not care about other people, right? You do not care about other animals. You don't care. You have very little sympathy, or empathy is a better word. You just can't understand. You don't see it. There's nothing that's there, right? So it has nothing to do with harming other people, which is kind of more, I think, on the narcissistic side. Um, but the sort of sociopath is just like, it's dead. There's no relationships that are there. And you see everything kind of more transactional, where it's just like, this serves my purpose, and then I'll move on to something else. Um, and as you sort of see life in this way, and as you sort of go through life in this way, you begin to realize, like, wait a minute, like a lot of life is sort of set up in that way. And a lot of people believe that that is a normal way of functioning in this world, right? But I'm going to tell you from my perspective, that is not. But that is very harmful for other people in your life, but you're likely not going to see it because of the way that you're raised, because of the genetic traits that you actually have. And so, as I'm a very empathetic person, right? Like I very much feel, I feel for others, and I'm very, sensitive to a lot of things, and it's hard for me to sort of process these things often. And there's in the business environment, so I'm in business environments, there's often trains, like the social norms are to be sociopaths, and sort of very narcissistic, right? You got to do what it takes to get ahead. And that is the general story with almost all business environments. And it's absolute garbage, because that's not how you build long term relationships, right? In a very transactional environment, yeah, okay, I could see that that is okay, right? Like if you are, I don't know, something where it's a one off sort of situation, then maybe you can act like that. But most of the time, much of our life is not like that, right? And it's about building long-term relationships with people that you want to be around. And as I process this, right, that there's just people in your life where you just have to be okay with who you are, to stand up, to say, wait a minute, I am I am decent. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm just going to stand up and keep doing the right thing, given with who I am. And there's not much I can actually change about it. And I think if you imagine that in your head, I think you come across, um, I think you can deal with this a little bit more. Let's just say, hey, I'm okay with who I am, and there's nothing I can change. If there was things I could change, I would do it. But there's nothing I can change, and I just simply have to accept who I am. And then when anybody else does anything not so nice to you, is not supportive or anything like that, you just say, bless your heart. I think that's where I'm going to end this particular talk. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. And bless your heart.